Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and good day everyone. I, Dr. Sadia Atha, welcome you all on board. Yesterday we have discussed class 2 malocclusions, in which we talked about the class 2 dental malocclusion and class 2 skeletal patterns. Then we talked about the classification of class 2 malocclusion on the and class 2 division 1, class 2 division 2 malocclusions, and bimaxillary proclination and the subdivisions. Then we talked about the etiology of class 2 division 1 malocclusion, in which we said that it is multifactorial with skeletal, dental, soft tissue, and habits as a component to it. Then we discussed them in detail, and then we talked about the extraoral and the intraoral features of class 2 division 1 malocclusion, which we say that we will be usually having the normal to V-shaped arch and proclined upper incisors and increased overjet, increased curve of spee. And when we talked about the extraoral features, we talked about the convex facial profiles and incompetent lips and increased or normal lower facial height, retruded chin, so on and so forth. Then we discussed the lateral cephalometric findings, in which we said that the anteroposterior relationship of maxilla and mandible is disturbed, with the maxilla lying forward to the mandible, and vertical, all three types of vertical patterns may be seen with increased inclination of the incisors and protrusive lips. Today, we will be discussing the objectives that should be considered while treatment planning of class 2 division 1 malocclusion. Like all the other orthodontic cases, these are the following objectives that need to be considered before planning the treatment for class 2 division 1 malocclusion as well. Number one, aesthetics. They should be given a prime importance. The oral health of the patient should be considered. The function, the oral function, the masticatory function should be considered, and the stability definitely is a primary concern. So all these factors and the objectives, they need to be considered before planning a treatment for class 2 division 1. So when I talk about the aesthetics that need to be considered in case of patient facial, in case of class 2 malocclusion, what need to be considered? Patient face, patient smile, and the patient smile aesthetics, they need to be given a prime importance, because simply reducing the overjet without correcting any of the position of the teeth with reference to the face or with relationship to the lips will not definitely lead to a aesthetic result. We should not just consider to retract the upper incisors without considering any of the facial or the smile aesthetics. So the position of the teeth in the space, the competency or incompetency of the lips, the smile show, the anteroposterior relationship of the lips, the competency of the lips, everything that has to be considered before planning the treatment in cases of class 2 malocclusion as well. Therefore, the position of the teeth with reference to the face and with reference to the lips should be considered. Then what we need to consider is the exact etiology of class 2 division 1. So it should be dealt with in accordance. And then we have to address the exact location of the abnormality. For example, we need to discuss and see that whether the soft tissue is involved as an etiological factor, or it is because of the crowding, or it is because of the skeletal pattern. So, for example, if the maxilla is prognathic, it should be dealt in a different way. If the mandible is retrognathic, it should be the treatment planning should be aiming at a different area. Or if it is just in dental in nature, the treatment will be aiming at a different area. Therefore, the aesthetics, they need to be considered in all planes of space. For example, we need to say the teeth with reference to the face, we need to see the teeth with reference to the soft tissue, and then we need to address the exact etiological factors, and we have to devise the treatment planning plan accordingly. Therefore, number one component of objectives of treatment planning is aesthetics that need to be considered. Secondly, what we need to consider is the oral health of the patient. So usually in class 2 division 1 malocclusions, as we talked about, the upper incisors are proclined and there is an increases in overjet. Therefore, there is a high risk of trauma or high risk of traumatic injuries to these teeth, the proclined teeth. And as we talked earlier, that usually the teeth are proclined. This can be seen here, and the overjet is increased, plus the lips are also incompetent, so these teeth are more prone towards the traumatic injuries. So the focus should be to reduce the risk of traumatic injuries. As per a study, the risk of trauma, it is more than doubled in individual with overjet that is greater than 3 mm. Therefore, whenever the overjet and the size of the overjet increases, the risk of trauma also increases to the dentition, to the anterior dentition. And because in cases of class 2 division 1, as there is skeletal pattern involved as well, and that is maxilla is forward and mandible is backward, that may leads to incompetency, or the vertical pattern, that is high facial vertical pattern, that may lead to towards lip incompetency. So what is basically jumbling up is increase in the vertical pattern, lip incompetency, then increase in overjet, and proclined and prominent upper incisors. So they are definitely prone and at risk towards traumatic injury that should be reduced. Secondly, what need to be considered in the oral health and oral factors is, because of the lip incompetency, there can be a gingivitis. There can be gingivitis because the patient is trying to breathe through the mouth, or the oral tissue, it is continuously in contact with the external environment, the lips are not competent, so there may be an exacerbation of the pre-existing gingivitis in cases of class 2 division 1 malocclusion. So these are the oral factors that need to be considered while planning a treatment. Therefore, we need to see the statics. We have to see the relationship of the teeth with reference to the face, with reference to the soft tissue. We need to reduce the risk of traumatic injuries. We have to be very careful about the etiology of class 2 division 1. We should be planning a treatment that should be addressing this gingivitis and lip incompetency. And then talking about the function and stability, the functional result that is going to be provided by the treatment of class 2 division 1 malocclusion, at the end of the treatment, the functional result should allow the patient to at least incise the food normally. Why incise the food normally? Because in cases of class 2 division 1, because the upper incisors, they are not coming in contact with the lowers, or there's increased overjet, or they are proclined, so the patient may not be able to incise the food normally. So there should be an ideal incisor relationship at the end of the treatment, so the patient should be able to function along with aesthetics, and he should be able to function normally along with the aesthetics. Now, talking about the stability of the class 2 division 1 malocclusion, what we want is that at the end of the treatment should be stable. What we have achieved at the end of the treatment, for example, a correct incisor relationship, a correct canine relationship, or a correction of the overjet or the lip competency, and or retroclination of the upper incisors, everything that has been achieved should be stable. So, what is the major determinant of stability in case of class 2 division 1? In cases of class 2 division 1, the soft tissues, they are the major determinant of stability following the treatment. Now, how they are the major determinant of stability? As we can see here in this picture, the usually at rest, what should be there is that the upper incisors should be under the control of the lower lip. The upper incisors they should be under the control of the lower lip. But here, as in the picture, we can see that the upper incisors, they are not under the control of the lower lip. That is why the upper incisors, they are prone to procline. So in an ideal situation at rest, what happens is that the upper incisors, the lower lip is covering the upper incisor by 1/3. The lower one incisal third of the upper incisor is covered by the lower lip. So what happens is, when the upper incisor is being covered by the lower lip, the lower incisal third, matlab the incisal third of is covered by the lower lip. So what happens is that the upper incisors, they are under the influence of the lower lip, and then they do not procline. But usually what happens in the case of class 2 division 1 is that the upper incisors, they are not under the influence of the lower lip because of lip incompetency and proclination of the upper incisor. So there is no external force that is maintaining their angulation. In cases of class 2 division 1, what we want is that post treatment, after the treatment, if we want stable results, then ideally at the end of overjet reduction, the lower lip should cover 1/3 of the upper incisor. It should cover 1/3 of the upper incisor. So a competent lip seal is made, and a competent lip seal is made between the lips together. If the lower lip will not cover the upper incisor at the end of the overjet reduction, then what will happen, that the upper incisors will be prone to relapse or procline again, because they are not under the influence of the lower lip. So for the stability of class 2 division 1, ideally the lower lip should be covering 1/3 of the upper incisors following the overjet reduction. But if it is not possible to get the upper incisors under the control of the lower lip at the end of the treatment, for example in cases with severe lip incompetency, pre-treatment, or any other reason, in those cases an additional fixed retention should be added to the upper arch, and in cases to the lower arch as well, where they are proclined. So till now I have discussed the aesthetics, the oral health, function and stability as concerns and objectives for planning the treatment in class 2 division 1. In aesthetics, I said that it is important that the facial relationships and proportions should be considered along with the etiology, so that the exact etiology should be addressed. Then we talked about the oral health, in which we said that the risk of trauma should be reduced and the risk of gingivitis should be reduced. The function should be improved, and the patient should be able to incise the food normally at the end of the treatment. And when we talked about the stability, then we talked that the soft tissue is the major determinant of stability in case of class 2 division 1, and in ideal circumstances the upper incisor is covered by the lower lip to its 1/3, and because of this coverage, the upper incisors, they do not procline in normal circumstances. But in those cases of class 2 division 1, usually the upper incisors, they are not under the influence of the lower lip, therefore there is incisor proclination, and we want these incisors to be under the cover of the lower lip for a stable result. So ideally it should be achieved at the end of the treatment of following retraction. But if it is not possible, then we should be aiming for a fixed retention. Now, talking about the treatment options that are available in cases of class 2 division 1, there are majorly 3 treatment options that are available for the treatment of class 2 division 1. Number 1 is growth modification, and growth modification is usually done by functional jaw orthopedics. Then we can be having another treatment option that can be orthodontic camouflage or the orthodontic surgery. So these are the 3 basic treatment options that are present in cases of treatment of class 2 division 1. Growth modification is usually done in cases when the patient is growing. First of all, that he is in the growing age. Secondly, the problem is lying in the jaws, either the maxilla or the mandible, and then we'll be dealing them accordingly. In cases of orthodontic camouflage, usually it is done in less severe cases, and usually when the discrepancy and the malocclusion is small, and we are just moving the teeth to hide the underlying discrepancy, and we are masking it, and we are not doing anything with the jaws. That comes under orthodontic camouflage. And then when there is severe discrepancy, particularly in case of severe skeletal class 2, then we'll be going for, that is outside the scope of the orthodontic camouflage, then we'll be aiming for orthognathic surgery, and I will be dealing and discussing all of them in detail. Number 1, we'll be discussing the growth modification. So when we will be going for a growth modification, there are certain regulations for the treatment. That is, the patient should be in the growing age at the peak of his or her skeletal growth. It is not like that the patient is growing and you are just putting on an appliance at the age of 4 or 5 or 6 that the patient is growing. No. When you are going to address the growth modification, patient is at the peak of his or her skeletal growth, that is the pubertal growth spurt, and most probably it is most often it is given in the late mixed dentition, when there is the peak skeletal growth. The majority of the changes that we are achieving through the this growth modification still are the dentoalveolar changes, but definitely they are making a change to the facial profile, and it is a efficient and effective way to correct last 2 division 1 malocclusion, particularly when the patient presents to you in the growth spurt. Now the growth modification, it can be carried out early or it can be carried out late. So first of all, before going into the details of when to go for early and when to go for late, we should be knowing that what an early growth modification is and what a late growth modification is. By early, we mean that if the treatment of growth modification is carried out before the age of 10 years, that is in the early mixed dentition, we can categorize it as early treatment, and when it is carried out in the late mixed dentition, we call it as a late treatment. And usually all the growth modification treatments are carried out in the late mixed dentitions, because it's a very highly controversial area to discuss, that whether we should be going for early treatment and or whether we should be going for the late treatment. But the best research evidence suggests that there are multiple disadvantages of going for the early treatment, because if we are going for the early treatment, first of all it will be taking very long for the treatment, and it will be much more compliance dependent as compared to the late treatment, and it doesn't provide any better result, any better final result as compared to the late treatment. But there are some circumstances in which you have to opt for the early treatment instead of the late treatment. So there are two major situations in which the early growth modification is advised as compared to the late growth modification. Number 1, when you have to reduce the risk of incisal trauma. For example, in this case, as we can see, there's a huge overjet. With the with a very prominent upper incisor. So as I have already mentioned that the rate of incisal trauma increases when the overjet increases from 3 millimeters, more than double. So when the overjet increases like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 millimeters, as the overjet increases, the risk of trauma increases further. So when there is a risk of increased incisal trauma, in those cases early treatment is preferred as compared to the late treatment for the growth modification. And secondly, when the patient is being socially disturbed or teased or bullied, in those cases you definitely should be preferring for a early treatment, so that the patient should be having a better profile earlier, and he should not be developing any psychosocial or psychological stresses. So there are only two indications when you are going for the early treatment, that is when we have to reduce the risk of incisal trauma, or we have to limit the social bullying, and we have to limit the by we have to limit the teaser element by the public to the patient. So in those cases, the early treatment is recommended. Otherwise, the late treatment, that is at the peak of the pubertal growth spurt is a recommended treatment for the growth modification. So here, as we can see, incompetent lips, severe overjet, proclined upper incisors, socially anesthetic, unpleasant smile. So these are the cases when we are going for the early treatment in cases of in cases of functional or growth modification. So there are two ways for to go for the growth modification. Either we have to restrain the growth of the maxilla, or we have to modify the growth of the mandible. So how are we going to choose these modalities? If the maxilla, as we have discussed earlier, that the skeletal class 2 can be because of the prognathic maxilla, or it can be because of the retrognathic mandible. So if the class 2 is because of the prognathic maxilla, then definitely what we'll be going for is the restraining the growth of the maxilla. Then we'll be addressing the maxilla. If it is not always that in class 2 we are going for functional appliances, we are going for growth modification and functional orthopedics, which means that either we can go for the restraining effect or the modifying effect. If it is because of the overgrowth of the maxilla, then we will be going for the restraining growth through a headgear or any appliances that will be restraining the growth of the maxilla. And if there is any limitation to the growth of the mandible, if mandible is retrognathic, then we'll be going for modifying the growth with the help of functional appliances. So the growth modification can be carried out in two ways, either by the restraining the growth or by modifying the growth. So here we can see that it is because of the mandible, so we'll be giving a functional appliance that will enhance the growth of the mandible. Now, orthopedic appliances or the headgears, particularly they are used when the maxilla is prognathic. They can be used in combination, for example, in combination pull or in high pull, or even a low pull headgear can be used depending upon the vertical skeletal tartan. What basically headgear does is it restricts the growth at the suture. It doesn't let the bone to deposit at the circummaxillary, at the posterior superior sutures, and it doesn't let the maxilla to grow forward in further in a forward dimension. Therefore, what's the basically headgear? It restrains the skeletal growth by the action at the sutures, that is, it doesn't let the bone to deposit and further grow, and it is acting majorly on the circummaxillary and the posterior superior sutures and restraining the growth of the maxilla. So in cases when we are seeing that it is because of the retrognathic mandible, the class 2 malocclusion, it is because of the retrognathic mandible. In those cases, we have to promote the growth of the lower jaw, and usually the mode of action of functional appliances is that they mesialize the lower dentoalveolar segment, that is, they bring the lower segment forward, and they distalize the upper segment, and that is, they bring the upper segment backward, and they stimulate the growth of the condyle because of the muscular pull of the muscles of mastication and the facial expression. All of them are working together, so it is stimulating the growth of the condyle, and it is remodeling, it is doing some of the remodeling at the glenoid fossa. But still, I need to mention here is that majorly the changes that are achieved in case the functional appliances are dentoalveolar. Therefore, the dentoalveolar component will be maximized. So in cases of functional appliances, the mandible is brought forward. It will mesialize the lower teeth, distalize the upper teeth, some of the stimulation of the condylar growth, some of remodeling at the glenoid fossa, but majorly what we are observing still are the dentoalveolar changes, but a huge change in the facial profile is seen in cases of functional appliances, and usually they are given when the mandible is short or retrognathic. So there are various types of functional appliances that can be used in cases of skeletal classroom patient, some removable appliances and some fixed appliances. So when talking about the removable appliances, we can go for a Clark's twin block. This is a twin block having two blocks that are separate, attached to the mandible and separately attached to the maxilla, brings the mandible forward in a more physiologically stable position, and the muscles of mastication and muscles of facial expressions are facilitating it. Remodeling is happening, dental changes are taking place. Two blocks are there in cases of twin block, or it can be a bionator, that is a single block appliance. FR2 can be used, or an activator, but activator rarely isn't used nowadays. It is almost extinct. So talking about the fixed functional appliances, we have Jasper Jumper and Herbst. So depending upon the clinical situation and the operators, these appliances are chosen and used. So till now we have talked about the growth modification and jaw orthopedics, in which we said that it is usually done in cases of growing patients, and the area of concern is that the main etiology should be addressed. For example, if it is the problem with the maxilla, then the orthopedic appliances that will be restraining the growth of the maxilla should be used, or if it is the problem with the mandible, then the functional appliances promoting the growth of the mandible should be given. Now, the second modality of treatment that can be used in cases of class 2 division 1 correction is the orthodontic camouflage. By orthodontic camouflage, what we can do is it can be used to treat the malocclusion by moving the teeth into a class 1 relationship. But here we need to know is that we are accepting the underlying skeletal discrepancy. We are not changing any skeletal proportions, but we are just moving the teeth into a correct class 1 relationship. And usually it is orthodontic camouflage is performed when the skeletal contribution to the malocclusion is small. And for example, it is not severe, it is small, that is A and B, that is lying between 6 to 8 degrees. More of this discrepancy, the more we have to go for towards an orthognathic surgery. So what we are going to do in cases of orthodontic camouflage, when it comes to class 2 division 1 malocclusion, is that we have to retract the upper incisors, or we have to protect the lower incisors in order to make a class 1 incisor relationship. What we need to do for a retraction of the upper, if of the upper incisors, that is, if the retractions are needed in the upper arch, we need space in the upper arch. So that space may be created by either distalization, means taking all the teeth back and creating a space and then correcting the malocclusion in that space, or by extractions. So usually extractions that are performed in cases of class 2 div 1 malocclusion are the maxillary first premolars. The maxillary first premolars, they are extracted, the incisors are retracted in that space, and a class 1 incisal and canine relationship is achieved. That guarantees more aesthetic, more functional result. But in cases of mandibular crowding, for example, we are having severe or moderate crowding in the mandibular arch as well, and we are having a proclined upper incisor. In those cases, we have to address the lower arch as well. In the cases with mandibular crowding or any discrepancy in the mandibular arch, then maxillary first premolar and the mandibular second premolars are usually chosen. So in cases when just the inclination of the upper arch need to be corrected and the lower arches are almost well aligned, and they can be addressed non-extraction, then only upper first premolars are chosen for extraction. And in cases with both arches being involved, for example crowding in the lower arch, or anything that is any discrepancy or malocclusion that has to be corrected in the lower arch as well, in those cases upper 4 means upper first premolars, and lower 5 mean lower second premolars are the choice for extraction. So we can see here This is a pre and post op picture of a patient. We can see the proclination of the incisor, incompetency of the lips. The upper incisors were extracted, upper labial segment was retracted, which brings the correct inclination of the upper incisors and a lip competency, and this is the final result that was achieved with upper first premolars in case of class 2 division 1. These are the frontal and the lateral views of the same patient. These are the pre-op pictures and these are the post-op pictures. So here we can see increased interlabial gap, huge amount of overjet, incompetent lips, and here we can see competent lips, beautiful smile, competent lips on profile view, and these are the intraoral pictures. Here we can see that the patient is having a class 2 division 1 with lower incisors contacting behind the cingulum plateau, increased amount of overjet. Here we can see that the lower incisors, they are coming at the cingulum plateau. The canines and the incisors relationships are established, and the deep bite is corrected. So these are the basically cases which are not very severe in nature as far as the skeletal bases are concerned. So it is a very severe disharmony with reference to the dental occlusion. So an absolute anchorage was needed to correct this discrepancy. But at the end of the treatment, what we need is a stable incisor relationship, stable functional relationship, and a stable soft tissue relationship. So orthodontic camouflage usually is done in cases where the discrepancy is not so big, and we are going to retract the upper incisors, or in some cases we are going to protect the or procline the lower incisors. In cases it can be done either by distalization or by achieving space by extraction. So extractions that are usually done in cases of class 2 division 1 are upper 4s or upper 4 lower 5 in case of crowding in the lower arch. Now the third modality of treatment that we are going to discuss now is the orthognathic surgery, and when we will be going for the orthognathic surgery. We will be going for the orthognathic surgery when the skeletal pattern and the dental malocclusion pattern, they are beyond the range of orthodontic camouflage, and they are severe in nature. And in those cases, when if we'll be going for the orthodontic camouflage, it will further worsen the facial aesthetics. In those cases, we will be going for a combined orthodontic and orthognathic approach, and usually it is done when the A and B, that is a relationship of the maxilla and the mandible in the sagittal plane, is more than 8 degrees. Now, depending upon that which jaw is involved, for example, if it is because of the maxillary prognathism, then the surgery will be aiming at the maxilla. If it is because of the discrepancies because of the mandibular retrognathism, then the surgery will be aiming at the mandible, or in case of combination, we'll be going for the jaw surgery that is respective of that. So the which jaw surgery is to be performed depends upon the jaw or the deformity or the discrepancy that is involved. For example, we can be going for the maxillary setback in cases of prognathic maxilla, or be going for mandibular advancement in cases of retrognathic mandible, and in cases of combination discrepancy, you'll be going for maxillary setback, mandibular advancement. And in cases when the patient has presented to you with a severe short chin, you may be adding an optional genioplasty in order to enhance the facial appearance, and in order to consider the aesthetics and stability of the treatment results. So I'll be going through the minor details of orthognathic surgery just for understanding that the orthognathic surgery is usually divided into 3 phases. It's a pre-surgical phase, orthognathic phase, and the post-surgical phase. As the name suggests, the pre-surgical phase, it is done before the surgery, and the braces, they are on during the surgery and they are off even after the surgery for 6 months. So the pre-surgical treatment, it takes around 12 to 18 months. And in the pre-surgical orthodontics, what we do is we level the arches, we align them, and we go for decompensations. For example, if there are any dental compensations that are present, they are first decompensated in this phase. The arches are coordinated and leveled, and the wires and elastics are attached. Then this is a pre and the post-op picture of a patient who underwent the surgical orthodontics. Uh, as we can see here, the patient is having a prognathic maxilla, a retrognathic mandible, severe skeletal class 2 discrepancy. She was given an orthodontic orthodontic and orthognathic protocol in which the mandible was brought forward. The maxilla was not retracted because already we can see that the nasolabial angle is quite obtuse. The maxilla was given, it was a maxillary intrusion or a maxillary upward as a procedure that leads to the auto-rotation and then the forward positioning of the mandible. So the maxilla was placed up and the mandible was auto-rotated and again brought forward by BSSO, and the genioplasty was done in order to enhance the facial aesthetics. And now we can see that there is a marked difference between the initial and the final phases, in which we can see that there is severe incompetency in the pre-phase, and there are competent lips at the end of the post-surgical phase. The post-surgical phase, it includes a good interdigitation. A good interdigitation is done in those phases. The teeth, they are coordinated, and the remaining discrepancies in the arches that have been left pre-surgically or during the surgical procedure or anything that has happened is corrected during the post-surgical orthodontics. So till now we have discussed the various treatment modalities and treatment options that can be used for the class 2 malocclusions. The correction of class 2 division 1 malocclusion, in which I have said that class 2 division 1 malocclusion can be either corrected by a growth modification or jaw orthopedics, or it can be done by or the orthodontic camouflage or orthodontic or an orthognathic surgical protocol. And in growth or modification or jaw orthopedics, we talked about that if it will be a maxillary problem, then we'll be going for the jaw orthopedics, and if it will be a mandibular problem and retrognathism, then we'll be going for the functional appliances. And if the discrepancy is not so severe so that it can be managed in terms of skeleton, then we'll be addressing only the dental relationships in orthodontic camouflage, in which the upper incisors are retroclined or uprighted, or the lower incisors are proclined. We may be going for distalizations, we may be going for extractions. If extractions are needed in the upper fours, or in case of crowding or anything that is in the mandibular arch, then we'll be going for upper fours, lower fives. Then in case of severe discrepancies more than 8 degrees, we'll be going for orthognathic surgeries. And there are various types of orthognathic surgeries. Either the mandible is a mandibular forward surgery, that is mandibular advancement; maxillary backward surgery, that is maxillary setback; or the differential surgeries for the maxilla, in which the maxillary upward differential surgery or a genioplasty, they can be performed in cases of surgical orthodontics. And then I discussed the surgical orthodontics has 3 phases, that is pre-surgical, the surgical, and the post-surgical. Pre-surgical usually takes around 12 to 18 months, and the post-surgical phase usually takes about 6 months, in which the settling and the leveling alignment of the arches is done. Now we will be talking about the anchorage and the retention in case of class 2 division 1 malocclusion. When we talk about the anchorage, it is a real challenge to keep the upper posterior teeth still while retracting the upper labial segment to reduce an overjet. in case of class 2 div 1. So it is very challenging to basically manage the anchorage in cases of class 2 division 1, and it should be given a consideration at the very start of the treatment. Now when talking about the stability, we talked about, and retention, we talked about that ideally the upper incisors, they should be 1/3 covered by the lower lip for better stability, so that there should be no relapse and they should not move forward. So ideally upper incisors should be under the control of the lower lip following retraction at the end of the treatment in case of class 2 div 1 malocclusions. But in case when it is hard to achieve a good control of the upper incisors by the lower lip, or the lips are markedly incompetent, or there is vertical discrepancy or anything like that, in those cases we should be planning fixed retention for the upper arch as well, and we should be aiming for a fixed retention in order for the results to be stable. So this is all for today about class 2 division 1 malocclusion. Now in the next lecture, inshallah, we'll be discussing class 2 div 2 malocclusion, its etiology and its treatment planning. And this is all for now. So stay home, stay safe, stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.